G'day, I'm Luke from Big Game Small Pieces, and I'm here to continue talking to you about Dungeon Master advice for the Light of Xaryxis adventure. As hopefully the title let you know what was going on. So we're going to cover Chapter 6 and Chapter 7 in this one, and these ones are going to be pretty quick. There's not a lot to them. They're pretty fine adventures. It's just a bit of polish and a bit of understanding the time frames you're probably looking at when dealing with this part. So at the end of Chapter 5, we found out that we're about to start dealing with vampires. And now we get to roleplay with Grimzod and find out exactly what's going to happen. Is the group getting onto his ship and going to have a look around? How many of them will be invited to come along since they're vampires and they have to ask for permission to come aboard, which I think's cool. Or what are you going to do with that simple role play? Now, it does talk about the group being present in regards to negotiations between two ships forming up to form an armada of sorts, or an alliance, in which case you can have the characters there, but I mean, there's honestly no reason why they would even be there except for the fact that they are PCs. They are neither the captains at this stage, they are not the owners of the ships, so it should only really be Grimzod, Felandra, and Crux are the only real people who don't have any reason to be there, but they're PCs, so I guess they get to be there and find out what the negotiation's going to be like. I found this part of the adventure move through pretty quickly. At some point, for some groups, like 5 minutes, they just weren't too interested in the negotiations of ships. They were just like, if it becomes a problem, we'll just kill everyone. And then the other times, some wanted to get a little bit involved. So you're only looking at about 5 to 20 minutes here for this first bit before you trigger the mutiny. Now, for the mutiny, the last breath takes off and the second wind remains there. The group, if they really like some ship-to-ship combat, could start firing, but as Grimzod will tell them, don't do that. I've got heaps of alchemists fire on that ship for some reason, and also my precious cargo, which he hasn't alluded to yet. So probably not much of that. The adventure recommends that to catch up, Grimzod will tie a rope around his waist, cast flying himself, and the group can tow them to the ship where they can have a combat there if no one else in the group can't do that. But I see this as a great opportunity to bring those mounts I talked about getting at the Rock of Brawl in, and then the group can form up in a little squadron and go flying off after it and do strafing runs on the ship, or that the fighters can jump off and fight on the ship, jumping off onto their mount, flying around the other end, jumping off again and doing whatever they like and being really creative, while the meleeers could just do strafing runs or hover, flying the ship and shooting bow and arrow and spells and whatever they like. And the vampires on the ship could be using the ship weapons to fire back at them, or their ranged attacks or such. Real fun sort of stuff. You can also have the ghost, Agony, grabbing anyone on the deck and tripping them, and then hovering, going back below deck again as she keeps watching and spying, and then coming in and tripping characters up to make them prone. So she'll be in a constant annoyance down there for your melee types. And if you've bought models like I have, and I've used the Wizards of the Coast purchasable model ship, or if you've made your own or done anything, this is where you're getting the value. So definitely bring that model out and start using it. Lots of fun to have characters roaming around the ship. And how you're going to enhance this combat and making it more than just a constant slog is by doing interesting things with the vampirates. So such things such as walking up the mast and fighting from it and getting out of the range of the melees, or standing on the yardarm while they fight upside down to a melee who's standing on the deck fighting upwards and things like that, and just being creative. And you don't have to worry about wasting too many of your vampirates, because you can always have a few more come up from below deck who are down there waiting in ambush, and the players haven't come down and they've got to go join the fight, or were down lower doing some work and finally heard what was going on and decided to go investigate and figure out, and then heard the battle and came racing in. So if you're short on time, you could always have them surrender, and if you've got plenty of time and the combat's going fast, you can always bring up some more. Particularly any undead that you favour that you want to bring aboard and make interesting. This is be a cool thing to bring them into the fight. So lots of fun to be had here. And that's kind of it there, because at the end of this one, you get introduced and told, hey, this is Princess Zidali. So all in all, you're looking at a little bit of talking at the front about how the ships are going to align themselves. It all gets changed, because Grimzod then goes to a weaker position. So I wouldn't go too long if players aren't enjoying that. Trigger the mutiny once you realise people at your table are losing interest. Get into the chase. You could make it a skill challenge, or you could do it as the adventure sort of suggests, or as I've suggested with mounts. And then a combat on the ship that can happen from everywhere. Vampires running up and down the mast and dashing along places, teleporting around, using whatever vampire cool stuff you want to give them, and maybe make them flashier than they are useful, because your group will enjoy fighting these things. And don't forget, vampires explode. I forgot on one of my sessions, and so the Malias just really rampaged through the place, and I kept wondering what happened. Until I realised the vampires explode when they die. I forgot that. All in all, a fun combat with different aspects that you would normally not get. It's three-dimensional, it's floating and chasing through space. It's a real good combat. From there, we move into Chapter 7, Trust Issues. Now, at this stage, you need to understand what Zidali's story is and Crux's, because they're going to be at odds with each other, and Crux is going to get the mopes. So Zidali's going to explain things open and honestly, and you don't get anything that she's going to betray the group at the end of the adventure. And I found that a hard one. We'll discuss that at the end. But this one I thought was tricky because she showed no signs and everything was cool. And even if anyone who has the noble background for a character, you link her up with them a little bit more, because they must understand the woes of pressure from what is seen by the courts and royalty and how things must function. So she might gravitate more towards them. Crux, meanwhile, is going to get mopey and probably go out there and just want to shoot things off the back of the ship while the group are traveling. Is this a problem? For one of my groups it was. They'd lost interest in Crux. A couple of bad rolls of his musket, and they thought he was crap. But anyone who wanted to get pistol proficiency or musket proficiency, I said you can pick that up for free if you train with Crux. So now is a good time, if people are still doing it, we're halfway through the adventure, to give the group, anyone who has been training with Crux, pistol proficiency. If they've got crossbow proficiency already, or just give it to them because they've been training under him, and he's a commodore who can give his time to someone and teach them how to do something. And he can relate to them and have a role-playing moment together as they're tossing cans up, shooting them, and he's taking swigs and then maybe realising the alcohol's no good and hurls it up and shoots it. And it's time to straighten myself up and fix myself and go get my friend, and we attack these bloody elves as he gets realigned. So, good little role-play chance there. Make sure you've got Crux down-packed. Make sure you've just introduced Grimzod, so he's around, and him with Toppler's relationship, and then Zidali. So you've got Mr. Flinch and Starborough, and you've got a number of NPCs that you need to be prepared for dealing with when someone wants to go and roleplay or talk. Oh, we enter the Astral Sea to get ourselves to Doom Space, and it recommends having an adventure or a random encounter, be it a combat or non-combat. A random encounter in the astral could be a number of things. Now, the astral is a transitional plane for things to move around. So it could be anything. It could be a bunch of Slarty moving from Limbo, heading to Mechanus to do an attack on those lawful clockwork bastards. Or it could be anyone moving, devils, demons, anything you like. So have a look through the Spelljammer book. See what hasn't been done. An Eyemonger would be an interesting fight, or some murder comets, depending on your group's combat ability. And then you can also look at, if you wanted to keep it Spelljammer themed, that they've come across another ship. Now, remember, ship-to-ship combat is going to be a little different in the Astral as opposed to it is in the in Wild Space, because time doesn't flow, so characters don't have to breathe, and you can just think and move. So look up the rules for moving around. I think off the top of my head, it's been anything. It's changed a number of times in the various editions. but I thought at one stage it was either double or triple your int score, or 10 times your int modifier is your feat and movement. Have a check, look it up, and see what it is, because characters can just hover and float and move around. There is no left and right. There is no space here in the astral. I've just thought here. So an interesting encounter. Now, the group drop out of the astral and head into Doom space, and the Ori will click in and show them where they're going, and they're going to head down to Arun. Down there, Arun is a moon full of Tarrasques with huge plateau pillars sticking up from the surface and clouds and lightning jumping between them. You can't tell me that's gotta be something. I would be so disappointed if you told me later all this and I never picked up on it as a player. So definitely want to incorporate something there. And here's what I've done to incorporate that. Now, if you've had an encounter in the astral, you've probably eaten up about an hour's worth of your time. And with your little bit of role play at the start there, learning about the story and what's going on, you could have lost anywhere up to a half an hour there. You could be an hour and a half into your 2-hour game. So you may not have a lot of time left to do a whole nother combat down on Arun if you're sticking to the game's 2 hours. If you're doing a 3 to 4 hour, what I would say more as a normal session, then you've probably got a little bit of time for something, a combat-y session potentially, particularly if you haven't done anything in the astral. That's probably where you're going to find now you've got extra time. What many of my groups have done in the astral, actually, is I've used that money that they picked up from Gump, and they've flown to the second biggest market in the plains, at Tradegate, which is in the Concordant Outlands, which is the link to Bitopia. It's the gate town there. So I've just had my ship pop into the Concordant land. They've flown across in walking castles, the spire, everything, flown over, landed just outside of town, and gone in to negotiate some artisans to come around and give the ship an upgrade. And I've let all the players pick what upgrade they wanted. A stronger hull, better sails, lightning frame on the ship to avoid lightning down, whatever the group are interested in, a harder hull, whatever they like, and get repairs to Grimzod's ship as well. But going back to Arun, sorry, I got waylaid there. We head down and we're looking for Blastomoff. Now, I had the plateau being too thick with forest for the ship. After it's done a scouting trip around, couldn't see anything, and so it's just sort of hovered. The Spelljammers had to stay in it to keep it sort of there. They've thrown down some rope ladders. The away party have climbed down, and they've gone looking for the Warwick Blastomoff. And when they've found him, he's come charging out, and I've ran a skill challenge. So what they've had to do, the Tarrasque has seen the ship flying around, hovering there, and it wants food. So it's going to headbutt that plateau, and it's going to shear and start sliding and falling away. Now, as Crux comes racing through the jungle, calling out, "Whoa! Watch out!" The Aratuks are all chasing with their tentacled plant-like beings that are going to crawl along. Excuse me. The group are then going to get into a skill challenge. 3 successes before 3 failures. And it could mean a larger group of enemy at the end or a smaller group of enemy at the end, depending on which way you run it. I would hesitate that it doesn't matter what actually happens to some degree, depending on time. Time is what's going to manage your game, but if you have the time, then yes, the more enemy they will face at the end, where they have to, or they get cornered. So at this stage, they're running through the forest. They're going to hit, so we're after like 6 challenges that they need 3 successes before 3 failures. So something like thick vegetation, fighting their way through, how they're going to get through it. A fireball to burn it up and allow them to die. Their choice, how they solve those problems. It's a skill challenge. The ground shaking and tremoring from as the plateau is shearing its way down to fall over onto the moon's surface. A crevice opening as some of the ground starts to split, and the group have got to get past this opening crevice. Sticky tongues from the Aratuk trying to lash onto the back of people and pull them back. An Aratuk attack as some of them come out and start attacking the group, and the group have just got to either attack back or get a success or dodge or jump or however they decide they're going to deal with a bunch of Aratuk catching up. And potentially some trees falling onto them sort of thing as the ground's shaking and they're getting all these large bits of tree coming down onto them and they're trying to dodge and avoid getting hurt. Now, If they've failed all those and you have time, you could have them fight all of those Aratuk that have been chasing them. Or if you've got the time, I keep saying got the time, and you've passed, maybe they only fight half or a few less. Either way, that skill challenge should give them something and make it a quick challenge of quick decisions and racing through the jungle and make it that goes through very quick. If you're at your 2-hour mark, you can easily say they've just escaped. They're getting just to the ship, and that's when the bulle rock up. Cliffhanger for next session. If you've got a longer session, more like 3 hours, then yes, a fight with the Aratuk it will come in handy here, and then end the session on those bulle between the group and the ship, so that the next challenge, they've got to figure out how they're going to get past in so many rounds before the plateau falls over and get to the ship. It's a combat, but with a goal, a primary goal, of getting past, not necessarily engaging. So, yeah, something interesting there. Well, that's about it. That's all I've really got for these 2 chapters. I thought they were generally good. A little bit of polish needed to tell you how I went with it. Talking about time, we've talked about some ways that you can improve and how to play up the adventure. I hope you're enjoying these. I'm enjoying talking about it because I've enjoyed Spelljammer, and I'd be happy to, I'm probably going to run it again at some point for some group. But I hope you've gotten something from this. Thanks very much for listening to me talk about stuff. Do YouTube things down below, comment, like, subscribes, and of course, if you've done something that just blew your mind is so much better than what I've been talking about, put it down below. I want to see what people are getting up to in this adventure. Thanks much, Lee. I'll catch you next time.